Hello and welcome to another one of my Leetcode videos. In this one we'll do Leetcode 2564 Substring XOR queries. This is also part of today's weekly contest. So basically we're given a binary string S, meaning we're given a string which will only consist of ones and zeros, and we're given a set of queries, right? So we want to find, like, for each of the queries, is there a value in this binary string as a substring of this binary string such that value XOR first is equal to the second value of the query, right? So in this case, is there a value such that value XOR 0 is equal to 5, right, in this array? And turns out there is, like, 101 is 5 and 5 XOR 0 is 5. So 101 is present in the array from index 0 to 2. So we have it in our output. Similarly, we have 1 and 2. 3 XOR 1 is actually equal to 2. And 3 is present here, like this index is 2 to 3. So that's why we have 2, 3 over here. So what will be our approach to solve this problem? Obviously, we know that for this to be true, right? So basically, for this equation to be true, basically first XOR second should be equal to value, right? So we can just simplify this to say, okay, we need to look for 0 XOR 5, or we need to look for 1 XOR 2 in the array, right? So basically now our problem is simplified to saying, you know, given a number n, determine if n is in this binary string, right? And to answer this question, we'll just cache all the numbers that are in the binary string in a map and store the first index that we see them, right? So let's say we have 101101. What we'll do is we'd say, okay, from starting from this index, what are all the numbers we can make, right? And we'll go from this index all the way up to 31, because there are 31 bits in integer, right? Or 32 bits, so we can go from 0 up to 0 plus 31 inclusive, right? And so then we'll find all the numbers that start with this. When we see a 0, we'll just put 0 in the map, but we'll skip traversing all the numbers, right? Because 0 is a leading 0, so we want to skip that, right? And then when we go to the next one, we'll say, okay, what are all the numbers that start from here, right? And so on, right? So just walking through this specific example, we'll cache, like, okay, 1, we'll have it at an index of 1 to 1, right? And then we'll have 1 0, which is 2. We'll have it at an index from 1 to 2. And then we'll hit 101, which is 5. So we'll have at index 1 to 3. And then we'll hit 1011, which is, right? So that will be for the starting from this element. And then we'll see 0. So we'll just say, okay, 0 is present from index 1 to 1, right? Sorry, these should all be zeros, by the way. So they should all be 0 to 0. So I've gone ahead and just fixed the indexes, and I put them on top as well for ease. So yeah, so then when we get to 0, we'll say, okay, 0 is just 1 and 1 actually. And then when we get to 2, we'll say, okay, 1 1, that's 3. So we'll insert 3 in our map with index 2 and 2. And then 1 we've already seen before, so we won't replace it because we want the leftmost index, right? And then when we go to 110, that's going to be 6, right? So 6 is going to be from index 2 to 4. And then we'll have 1101, which is going to be 13. We haven't seen that yet, so that's going to be index 2 to 5, right? And then similarly, we'll go with 3. We've already seen 1 0. We've already seen 1. We've already seen 1 0, and we've already seen 101, so we don't update our map at all. And then 4 starts with a 0, and 0 is already in the array, so we just ignore that because we can't start numbers with leading zeros. And then similarly 5, it's already in the array. So we'll end up with this map. And so the time complexity of this will be O of 32, because we'll try all of the 32 words, times n, right? Where n is basically going to be technically the number of ones, right? Because for zeros we don't go all the way to 32, but for the ones we will. So it's going to be O of 32 times n. And then the space complexity, like the maximum this can be is the integer space, right? So this would just be equal to all the possible numbers that we can create with n. So this will just be like max of 2 to the 32, or basically the integer range, right? And 2 to the length of n, right? Because if the length of the n is actually less than 31, then, you know, we won't have that long numbers. But otherwise, no matter what n is, the max space complexity will be basically the integer range. So let's go ahead and code this solution. So the first thing we'll do is initialize and populate our map. So I have here the map, and then what we'll do is we'll just iterate through each of the indices in S. So we have our loop of I, and I will basically be the start index of the letter, and then we'll create another loop inside here for J, which will basically go start from I and then end at I plus 31, right? Because that's 32 bits. Or if J exceeds S dot length, then we also have to stop the loop. So in order to continue the loop, I or J has to be less than equal to I plus 31, right? Because we only traverse 31 bits. And J has to be less than S dot length because we don't want to exceed the string. And obviously we have J plus plus here. So we'll grab our current character, right? So the current character will be, so we have the digit here, right? And remember that we only actually want to do this traversal if the ith number is 1, right? Because if it's a 0, then it's like a leading 0, and we don't want to start from that index, right? So here, let me just check if the digit is 0, right? So if I digit is equal to 0, then I'm just going to update the map with 0 as the number and I comma I as the indices, right? So this is the first time we've seen 0 because I'm using put if absent, right? So if 0 already exists, we won't replace it, but otherwise we'll mark it as I comma I, saying that, hey, if this is where we have a 0, right? So, and then we'll continue, right? So we don't want to go into the for loop. So now, once we're here, we know that, okay, the I starts with a 1, right? So we have our digit, and we need to get our number here, right? So let's say our number initially starts with 0. This is going to be the number we're tracking as we're, increasing the string, right? Like basically like 12, 13, 22, and so on. So we have the digit. So we'll say number times equals 2 every time, and number plus equals digit, right? So in the initially, like let's say when we're here, the number is 0, 0 times 2 will just be 0, so we'll have 1, right? And then when we move to 1, 0, it'll become 2. When we move to 1, 0, 1, 2 times 2 will be 4, plus the 1 at the end, that will become 5, and so on. So that's how we can keep getting our number every time. And so we'll do the same thing. We'll put if absent number, and our indices will be I, which is where we're starting from over here, and J, because this is basically the number from I to J, right? So this basically populates our map. Now we just need to build our answer array and then populate that by reading from the map. So I've initialized the answer array here, which will be queries.length, and each of them will be 2 because that's start and end index. And let's start with our I equals 0. So we'll go through each of the queries. And remember, the value we're looking for is basically query 0 XOR query 1. So we need to find if this value is in the map. So if it is, we'll add that to our answer, right? So we'll say answer at I plus plus equals num to indices dot get val. And if the val is not present, so we'll just do get or default, then what we'll do is we'll just return as we are instructed, -1, -1, right? Because we didn't find that value in our map. And at the end, we'll just return answer. So I think this will work. Let's run this and see how this does. All right, I'm missing here an int. Same thing over here. All right, this should be I because we're picking the ith digit over here. All right, accepted. Let's submit. Perfect. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.